The trade hub floated in orbit around a red star that shone weak and tired. Ships came and went, each hour, carrying goods, metals, and food. Merchants shouted inside the market selling rare items to travelers from across the galaxy. But at the far end of the hub, away from the bright stalls, stood a heavy cage. The cage was tall as a house, forged from black metal and guarded by soldiers with shock spears. Inside it lay the most feared creature the hub had ever seen. It was a dragon. Its scales shined like burned iron. Its wings, though folded, stretched wider than any ship parked nearby. Fire sometimes leaked from its mouth, and when it opened its eyes, they glowed like burning coals. Aliens who walked past did not look directly at it, for fear of drawing its anger. The beast was known across many systems. Every world told the same story. It was cursed, violent, and impossible to tame. The guild had captured it years ago during a raid near the Rim Worlds. Many had tried to use it. Warlords paid to take it, but each returned it after suffering burns and broken machines. Nobles tried to display it as a prize, but it smashed their halls with its tail. Smugglers had carried it across the stars, yet even they gave up after losing crews. Now it sat chained in the hub, its wings bound by iron, its neck locked with a collar that hummed with energy. The guards called it Ferocious, yet in truth it looked more tired than fierce. Crowds gathered near the cage from time to time, pointing at the dragon as though it were a monster in a show. Traders whispered about how it once destroyed a cruiser with only fire. Children from alien races laughed and threw stones at its legs, only to run away when it growled. Everyone despised it, calling it useless and dangerous. Among the noise of markets and merchants, a human named Tom walked by. Tom was not rich, not powerful, and not even respected. He worked as a mechanic. His shop was a small corner filled with broken ship parts. He earned little by fixing engines that no one else wanted to touch. His hands were always black with grease, and his clothes smelled of metal. No one paid much attention to him. Tom walked past the cage with a bag of tools slung over his shoulder. At first he ignored the crowd, for he had no interest in watching the creature everyone called cursed. But then, something strange happened. The dragon lifted its head. It did not roar. It did not spit fire. It only looked at him. Tom stopped walking. He thought perhaps the beast was staring at someone else. But when he moved, the dragon's eyes followed. The guards raised their spears and shouted warnings. One of them barked that humans should stay away. Yet Tom did not feel fear. He felt something else. He saw pain in those glowing eyes. The crowd hushed as Tom stepped closer. The dragon growled, a sound so deep that the floor seemed to shake. The guards shouted louder, ready to shock it if it tried to attack. But the dragon did not lunge. Instead, it lowered its head just slightly, as though waiting. Tom did not know why he lifted his hand. Maybe it was foolish, maybe it was curiosity, but he reached out. His hand touched the cold iron bars of the cage, and then he moved it closer to the beast. The crowd gasped. No one in the galaxy dared touch the dragon. Many who tried in the past lost their lives. Yet Tom pressed his hand against the beast's scales. The surface was rough and hot, like stone left under the sun. The dragon did not snap its jaws or burn him with fire. It stayed still. Its breathing slowed. Its eyes half closed. A silence spread over the market. Whispers rose. Some said the human was insane. Others said he was already dead and simply had not realized it. But the dragon remained calm under his touch. Tom looked closer and saw deep marks on the creature's body where chains had rubbed against scales. Its wings trembled from wounds that had never healed. The collar around its neck sparked faintly, sending small shocks through its skin. The beast had not been born cruel. It had been forced to live in pain, hated by those who never understood it. He pulled his hand back and stepped away. But the dragon's eyes followed him. The guards shouted at him to leave. They said he was lucky it had not killed him. Merchants laughed, saying the human must have a broken mind if he thought the dragon could ever be tamed. But Tom did not answer. He walked back to his shop, his thoughts heavy. That night the hub quieted. The lights dimmed, ships rested in the docks, and only the guards remained awake. Tom sat inside his small shop, staring at a broken engine he was supposed to repair. His hands moved slowly, not with his usual skill. His mind kept going back to the dragon. He remembered the feel of its scales and the way it had not harmed him. He wondered why. Perhaps it had chosen to spare him. Perhaps it had seen something in him that others lacked. Or perhaps it was only tired of fighting. He thought about its wounds, about the chains that dug into its skin, about the way the galaxy mocked it. Tom was just a mechanic. He had no army, no weapons, and no standing. Yet in his heart he felt a strange pull. He did not see a monster. He saw a creature abandoned by all. The next morning he returned to the cage. The guards frowned when they saw him. One told him to stay away, but Tom shook his head. He approached again, step by step. The dragon looked up once more, its eyes burning like fire. The crowd gathered, waiting for him to be crushed. He stretched his hand again. The dragon did not move. It only breathed slow and steady. This time, Tom spoke. His voice was calm, though many around him laughed. "You are not a monster," he said. "You are only hurt. You are only alone." The words meant nothing to the aliens nearby, but the dragon let out a long breath, smoke rising from its mouth. For a moment, its head lowered until its snout pressed near the bars. Tom touched it again. The hub that once hated the beast now stood in silence. For the most feared creature in the galaxy had allowed a human to pet it, and so the bond began. The news spread across the hub like fire across dry wood. A human had touched the dragon, and the dragon had not burned him alive. Every corner of the market echoed with whispers about it. Merchants shook their heads, guards laughed at the idea, and alien travelers called it impossible. Yet everyone who had stood near the cage yesterday knew the truth. They had seen the human named Tom place his hand on the cursed beast, and they had seen the beast accept it. By morning, the cage had more visitors than ever before. Some came to watch, others to mock, and a few simply to see if the story was true. Tom did not care for their whispers. He was not a man who lived for glory or recognition. He returned because something inside him refused to let go of the sight he had seen. The dragon waited. It sat in silence. Its wings bound, its scales scratched and bruised from years of chains. But when Tom arrived, its eyes opened and followed him. The crowd gasped when he walked closer, yet the guards only sighed in annoyance. They were beginning to know his face. One muttered that the mechanic must have death written in his fate. Tom ignored them. He stood before the cage, his eyes fixed on the creature. The dragon gave a low rumble from deep within its chest, a sound that made the floor vibrate. The crowd stepped back in fear, but Tom did not move. Slowly, carefully, he lifted his hand. The dragon lowered its head again. Tom pressed his hand against the scales just above the creature's snout. They were warm, rough, and full of strength. The dragon did not resist. Instead, it breathed slowly, as though it trusted him. The silence that followed was heavy. No one laughed. No one mocked. They could only stare. Tom spoke softly, almost as if his words were meant only for the dragon. "You are tired. You have carried pain for too long. But you are not the curse they call you." The dragon's eyes half closed, and a puff of smoke drifted from its nostrils. The crowd erupted into whispers again. Some shouted that the human was a fool. Others warned that this trick would not last. Still others claimed it was some strange human magic. Tom did not argue with any of them. His hands stayed on the beast, calm and steady. The guards approached, spears ready. "Enough," one barked. "Step back before it kills you." Tom looked at them, then back at the dragon. He pulled his hand away, but the dragon leaned forward, pressing its snout against the bars as if to follow his touch. The crowd fell silent once more. That evening, Tom returned to his shop, but his thoughts were heavy. He sat on the floor surrounded by broken engines, but he did not reach for his tools. Instead, he remembered the warmth of the dragon's scales and the way it had leaned closer. He thought of the wounds carved into its body by years of chains. He asked himself why it had spared him. Why had it chosen him, a simple mechanic with nothing to offer? Days passed and Tom kept returning. Each time, the dragon allowed his hand. Each time, the crowd gathered larger. The market was no longer buzzing only with trade, but also with rumors of the human who dared pet the ferocious beast. Some began to mock him openly, saying he was wasting his time. Others began to watch with quiet curiosity, wondering if perhaps this human had discovered something no one else could see. One day, Tom brought a piece of cloth dipped in water. He reached through the bars and gently pressed it against a wound near the dragon's jaw where the collar had burned its skin. The dragon flinched at first, but then relaxed. Letting him clean the injury, the guards shouted angrily, telling him he had no right. But the dragon did not resist. It sat still, watching him with glowing eyes. "See," Tom whispered, "you are not a curse. You are only waiting for someone to care." The dragon breathed out slowly, a hot gust of air brushing against him but carrying no fire. By now, the hub's leaders were growing restless. They gathered in their tall council hall, discussing the strange bond between the human and the beast. Some feared it would cause trouble. Others thought it could be used for profit. One merchant suggested selling tickets to watch the human touch the dragon. Another said they should sell the beast once more, this time with the human as proof it could be tamed. Tom heard none of this. He was in his shop, fixing a small ship engine, when a boy entered. The boy was an alien child with thin arms and bright eyes. He looked nervous but curious. "Is it true?" the boy asked. "The dragon lets you touch it?" Tom nodded, not lifting his head from his work. "Can you show me?" The boy whispered. Tom looked at him for a moment. Then he set down his tools and said, "It is not a show. The dragon is not a toy. If you come, you must respect it." The boy agreed, and so the next day, Tom brought him to the cage. The guards frowned, but Tom stood firm. The dragon opened its eyes and looked at them. The boy trembled, but Tom placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not fear," Tom said softly. Tom touched the dragon's snout again. Then, very carefully, he guided the boy's hand forward. The boy's fingers brushed the hot scales. For a moment the dragon's eyes narrowed, but it did not move. The boy gasped, amazed. The crowd cheered and shouted, but Tom did not let the boy stay long. He pulled his hand back and led him away. Later, the boy told others that the dragon was not as frightening as the stories claimed. That rumor spread quickly, changing some whispers of hate into whispers of wonder. Still, many remained doubtful. One merchant declared loudly in the market that the beast was only waiting for the right moment to kill the human. A smuggler laughed and said Tom's bones would soon be scattered across the hub. But Tom did not listen. He returned every day, and each time the bond between him and the dragon grew stronger. One night, when the hub was quiet, Tom sat near the cage. The guards had grown used to his presence, so they no longer chased him away. He leaned against the bars and looked into the dragon's glowing eyes. "Everyone thinks you are cursed," he said softly. "But I think you are only waiting for someone to see you. I do not know why you chose me, but I will not turn away." The dragon gave a deep rumble, not angry, not violent, but almost gentle. Its eyes closed for a moment. It rested its head on the ground near him. Tom reached through the bars and touched its scales once more, and in that moment, the human and the dragon were no longer enemies, no longer stranger and beast. They were something different. They were companions, even if the galaxy refused to believe it. For the first time in years, the dragon slept peacefully. And for the first time in his life, Tom felt he had found a purpose greater than fixing broken ships. The galaxy continued to laugh and scoff, but a bond had been born that no whisper could undo. The trade hub never slept. Ships landed and departed every hour. Merchants shouted in markets and deals were made in hidden corners. Yet for many days the greatest talk was not about trade, but about a human mechanic and a dragon that no one dared to love. The sight of Tom placing his hand on the beast had become a story told at every stall, every tavern, and every dock. Some laughed at it, some doubted it, and some feared it. But Tom did not seek fame. Each morning, he returned to the cage with a quiet face and steady hands. The dragon greeted him with low rumbles, its fiery eyes softening whenever he came near. Tom cleaned its wounds when he could, spoke to it as if it were a friend, never once treated it like a weapon or a trophy. The guards began to trust him, though they still shook their heads. One day they said, "The fire will come, and you will not survive." But each day passed, and still Tom stood unharmed. One morning, Tom walked to the cage carrying a bag of tools. The crowd thought he had brought weapons, but instead he pulled out bolts, wires, and sheets of metal. He sat near the cage and began to build something. Sparks flew from his tools as he worked. Curious traders gathered, wondering what the foolish human was doing. By nightfall, he had crafted a harness. It was wide, strong, and lined with soft padding. It was not a weapon, nor a chain. It was a device meant to help the dragon's damaged wings heal without pain. The crowd was shocked. Many asked why he would waste his time. The dragon was hated by all. Why would a simple mechanic spend his skill on such a creature? Tom only answered with calm words, "Because no one else will." The next day he placed the harness on the dragon's wings. At first the beast resisted, growling and thrashing, shaking the bars of the cage so hard that the guards raised their spears. But Tom did not back away. He spoke softly, his voice steady. "I am not here to hurt you. Trust me." The dragon stilled. Its glowing eyes stared into his, and slowly it allowed him to fasten the harness. The crowd was stunned. No one had ever seen the dragon allow anyone to bind it without chains or whips. This was not force. This was trust. From that day, Tom cared for the dragon as he would for a broken ship. He cleaned its wounds, fed it with food he bought from his own wages, and even polished its scales. He spent hours repairing the damage done to its body by years of cruelty. The hub began to change. At first, people mocked him, calling him the fool who petted fire. But as days turned into weeks, their laughter grew quieter. More and more began to watch in silence, but the bond between man and beast was undeniable. One night, in the council hall of the hub, the leaders gathered. They spoke in heavy voices about the human mechanic. Some argued that his actions were dangerous. If the dragon grew too strong, it might burn the station to ash. Others argued that the bond could be used. Perhaps they could sell the dragon again, but this time at a far higher price. Since proof now existed that it could be handled, the guildmaster, an old alien with 4 eyes, finally declared, "The human has bought the trust of the beast. If he is willing to take full responsibility, then let him own it. If he fails, his death will be his own." The council agreed. They summoned Tom and placed the choice before him. He stood in the tall chamber, grease still on his hands from a day's work. His voice was calm as he answered, "If no one wants it, I will take it. I will care for it." The council laughed among themselves. They believed he would soon regret this choice. Yet Tom placed all his savings before them, every coin he had earned from years of repairing engines. It was not much compared to the wealth of merchants, but it was everything he owned. The guild accepted. The dragon was his. When word spread, the hub erupted in laughter. The poorest human mechanic had bought the most cursed beast in the galaxy. Many said he would not live a week. Others bet on how long before the dragon burned him alive. But Tom ignored their voices. He moved the dragon from the public cage into a wide hangar near his shop. The space was old and broken, full of rusted ships that no one had used for years. But to Tom, it was perfect. It gave the dragon shelter, space to rest, and freedom from mocking eyes. For days, Tom worked without sleep. He repaired the walls, fixed the broken gates, and built a place strong enough to hold the beast without chains. He brought food and water, spending every last coin he had. The dragon watched him in silence, sometimes growling when sparks flew from his tools, but never attacking. When the work was done, Tom stood in the hangar and looked at the beast. "This is your home now. Not a cage, but a shelter." The dragon lowered its head, almost as if it understood. Still, the road was not easy. The dragon was powerful, and its temper was sharp. Sometimes it roared so loudly that the whole station shook. Sometimes it snapped its jaws in anger, testing the patience of its new master. The neighbors were terrified. They begged Tom to chain it again, but he refused. "It has lived in chains too long," Tom said. "It will learn trust, not fear." Bit by bit, The dragon grew calmer. It accepted food from his hands. It allowed him to fasten the harness each morning. It even spread its wings again, stretching them for the first time in years. Tom worked with steady care, treating each wound, polishing each scale, and strengthening the beast with the same dedication he gave to broken ships. One evening, as the hub quieted and stars glowed outside the station windows, Tom sat near the dragon. He leaned against its side, feeling the heat from its body. The dragon did not push him away. Instead, it let out a long breath and rested its head near him. Tom whispered, "You are not cursed. You are only waiting for someone to believe in you." For the first time, the dragon gave a sound that was not a roar, not a growl, but something softer. A deep rumble that felt almost like a purr. The station that once called Tom a fool now began to wonder. Perhaps humans were stranger than they thought. Perhaps this mechanic had seen what no one else could see. But while the bond grew stronger, danger was also growing. Word of the dragon's new master reached far beyond the hub. Pirates, warlords, and smugglers all heard that the beast, once thought untamable, had found loyalty in a human. Many began to plan. If the creature could be controlled, then it could be used as a weapon. And whoever held it would hold power across the stars. Tom knew nothing of these whispers yet. He only worked day by day, caring for the beast that had once been despised. But the galaxy was watching. And soon, his choice to buy the dragon would lead him into a storm far greater than he had ever known. For now, the mechanic and the dragon rested side by side. Unaware that their bond was about to be tested by fire and war, the hub had slowly grown used to the sight of a human mechanic walking beside the dragon. At first it was shock, then it became gossip, then it turned into silence filled with uneasy respect. The beast that had been feared by all was no longer chained in the market, but resting inside the old hangar Tom had repaired. Day by day, the mechanic worked on the creature as if it were one of his broken ships. And day by day, the dragon healed. But beyond the Red Star's orbit, news traveled faster than light. The story of the human and the dragon spread to other systems. Traders carried it in their mouths as they passed through stations. Smugglers laughed about it while drinking in shadowed taverns. Warlords whispered about it in their war councils. And pirates, always hungry for power, began to sharpen their plans. The pirates were not like the simple thieves of small worlds. They commanded fleets of ships, each armed with cannons and claws. They preyed upon weak stations, looting and burning before fleeing into the dark. Their leader was a cruel figure named Var. His ship, the Black Fang, had left ashes across many systems. When he heard that a dragon, living fire itself, had been tamed by a human, he wanted it for himself. One cold cycle. A fleet of dark ships appeared near the hub. Their engines burned with red light, their hulls scarred with the marks of many battles. The station's sensors lit up with warnings, and panic spread among the people. Merchants closed their stalls. Families hid in their quarters. The council gathered in fear, for they knew their weak defenses could not stop such a fleet. The message came quickly. The pirate leader's voice echoed across the station's speakers. "Give us the dragon. Hand it over, or burn with it." The council trembled. Some argued they must surrender the beast to save the hub. Others said the pirates would destroy them anyway. Fear filled every corner of the station. All eyes turned to Tom. The mechanic stood quietly in the council chamber. His clothes were stained with oil, his hands scarred from work. He had no army and no wealth, yet the dragon was his. The council begged him to surrender it. They said it was only a beast. No human's life was worth the survival of thousands. Tom looked at them, then thought of the dragon waiting in the hangar. He thought of its wounds, its eyes, its trust. Finally, he shook his head. "No," he said, "I will not give it away. It is not a weapon for them to use. It is not a monster for them to chain again. If the pirates want to fight, then we will fight," the council shouted in disbelief. They called him mad, but Tom did not move. When he returned to the hangar, the dragon lifted its head. Its eyes glowed, sensing the storm approaching. Tom stood before it, his voice calm but firm. "They are coming for you. They want to chain you again, to use your fire for war, but I will not let them. If you stand with me, we will fight together." The dragon let out a deep rumble. It spread its wings, the harness glowing faintly where Tom had repaired the joints. Flames leaked from its mouth, not in rage, but in readiness. For the first time, the beast seemed eager to rise, no longer a prisoner, but a guardian. The attack came fast. Pirate ships broke from the dark and rained fire upon the hub. Alarms screamed through the halls, lights flashed red, and people ran for safety. The hub's weak defense cannons fired, but they were few and old. The pirates swept closer like wolves circling their prey. Then the hangar doors opened. From the shadows rose the dragon, its wings beating against the thin air of the station docks. Fire poured from its mouth, a blaze that lit the black of space. The pirates laughed at first, calling it a beast from stories. But their laughter died when the dragon's flames sliced across the first ship, burning through its hull until it exploded in sparks. Tom flew beside it in a small ship he had repaired. His voice rang in the coms. "We fight together." As the battle became a storm of fire and steel, the dragon weaved through enemy ships, its body moving with power that no machine could match. It struck with claws, tore into holes, and burned engines with streams of flame. Tom guided it, drawing fire with his small craft, pairing systems mid-flight and giving the beast space to strike. The pirates fought back with heavy cannons. Energy blasts cut through the dark, slamming against the dragon's scales. It roared in pain, but did not fall. Tom shouted encouragement, steering his ship to cover its side. Together, they moved as one, mechanic and beast, against a fleet that outnumbered them 10-1. On the station, people watched from windows. At first they feared, but soon their fear turned into awe. The dragon they had hated was now their shield. The human they had mocked was their defender. Each roar of the beast and each strike of Tom's ship pushed back the enemy. The pirate leader Var grew furious. He ordered his flagship to the front. The Black Fang surged forward, its cannons blazing. It was larger and stronger than the rest, a monster of steel. Its weapons struck the dragon again and again, driving it back. Tom's ship shook under the fire. He spoke to the dragon through the com. "We cannot stop now. Together." The dragon roared, a sound that shook space itself. It gathered fire deep within its chest, brighter and hotter than ever before. Flames burst from its jaws, striking the Black Fang in a wave of burning light. The great ship cracked, its weapons falling silent, and with one final roar, the dragon tore through its hull. The Black Fang exploded, fire spreading across the dark sky. The remaining pirates fled, their courage broken. The fleet scattered into the void, leaving only silence behind. The hub was safe. When the battle ended, the dragon landed on the station docks. Smoke rose from its scales, but its eyes still burned with life. Tom stepped out of his ship, his body weak, but his spirit strong. He walked to the beast and placed his hand upon its snout. The people gathered in silence, their fear turned to respect. They bowed their heads, for they had seen with their own eyes what they once mocked. The dragon was not cursed. It was their protector. Tom looked at the crowd and then at his companion. "It is not a monster," he said. "It is my friend." The hub echoed with cheers. The galaxy that had despised the beast now spoke of it as a legend. And at the center of it all stood a human mechanic who had chosen to fight when all others would have surrendered. But beyond the stars, other ears heard the story. More powerful than pirates, greater than warlords, they too would turn their eyes toward the human and his dragon. For this was not the end, but the beginning of a greater storm. The hub had never seen such a sight. People who once mocked the dragon now looked on in awe. The flames that had torn through pirate ships lit the station docks with fire that was both terrifying and beautiful. For the first time in years, the dragon stood not as a threat, not as a cursed beast, but as a protector. Its wings spread wide, stretching against the dim light of the red star. Scales shimmering in gold and black, eyes burning like molten fire. Tom walked beside it. his small hands brushing against its rough, heated scales. The crowd parted as he passed, some stepping back in fear, others moving closer in admiration. He was not tall, not strong, and not wealthy. Yet he walked with the confidence of one who had faced fire itself and stood undefeated. The dragon lowered its head to meet him at eye level, smoke curling from its nostrils. In its gaze, he saw a trust that had taken years to build. A bond that not even the fiercest warriors could claim. The pirates had fled into the void, their fleets scattered and broken. The news of their defeat traveled faster than light. Traders carried stories to neighboring systems. Children whispered it in schools, and merchants used it as proof that humans could rise above fear and expectation. The galaxy began to speak of the dragon and the mechanic who had tamed it, but they did not call him a master. They called him a hero. The Hub Council gathered once more, this time not in fear but in admiration. The leader, a tall alien with scales of deep blue, bowed his head before Tom. "You have done what no one else dared," he said. "You have protected the Hub, saved our people, and earned respect for a creature we all once feared. What you have done cannot be undone." Tom shook his head humbly. "It is not just me," he said. "It is him. He chose to fight with me. He chose to trust me. I only gave him a reason to believe that not all humans are cruel." The dragon rumbled softly, a sound almost like a purr. The people in the room understood, even if they could not speak its language. The beast that had been feared, hated, and called cursed now rested in the center of the chamber, as if it had found home. From that day on, the Hub began to change. People who once ignored the dragon now left food for it in the docks. Children drew pictures of it in their schools. Travelers took stories back to distant systems about the human who dared to pet fire. Traders even spoke of Tom's skill, not only as a mechanic, but as someone who could see value where others saw only danger. Tom returned to his small shop, but life was no longer quiet. People came to him not only for repairs, but to hear his story. They wanted to know how he had earned the dragon's trust, how he had dared to face pirates with nothing but courage and a belief in friendship. Yet he answered simply, "It is not skill alone," he said. "It is care. It is patience. It is seeing someone for who they are, not what others say about them." The dragon rested in the hangar, watching him work. Sometimes it would follow him as he moved parts of ships, and sometimes it would circle the skies around the station, its fire lighting the night. It was no longer chained, no longer feared, but respected. Months passed. The Hub became a place of legend. Traders came from far systems not only to buy and sell, but to see the dragon and the mechanic who had tamed it. The people of the Hub learned a lesson they had never expected. Courage, kindness, and trust could change even the most feared beings. Yet even as the Hub celebrated, Tom never forgot the battles ahead. Word of the dragon's loyalty had spread far and wide. Warlords from distant systems began to plan, envying the human who had tamed fire itself. Smugglers whispered that he could be used to gain power. The galaxy, as wide as it was, had taken notice. One evening, Tom stood at the edge of the hangar, watching the stars. The dragon landed beside him, wings folding gently, smoke curling from its nostrils in quiet relaxation. Tom reached out, resting a hand on the creature's side. "They may come," he said softly, "but we will face them together, always." The dragon rumbled in agreement, its eyes glowing faintly in the night. They had fought together and had learned to trust each other. This bond was more powerful than any weapon, more lasting than fear, and stronger than hatred. Suddenly, a ship landed quietly on the station. It was small, sleek, and unlike any pirate vessel. Its engines hummed silently, and the air around it carried the feeling of authority. From the ship emerged a figure clad in polished armor, moving with calm confidence. The crowd parted as the figure approached Tom. "You are the human who tamed the dragon," the figure said. Its voice was strong, but not unkind. "I have watched your courage. I have seen your care. The galaxy has spoken, and now it seeks to know more." Tom raised his head, his hand still resting on the dragon. "I do what I can," he said simply. The figure smiled faintly. That is enough. You have proven that humans can rise above fear and expectation. The dragon is no longer a weapon, but a symbol. And so are you. Word spread even faster. The galaxy, which had once despised the beast and laughed at the human, now honored them. Across distant systems, stories were told of the human mechanic who had seen kindness where others saw danger, of the dragon who had fought not in anger, but in defense of trust. Their legend inspired others. Humans and alien species alike began to reconsider what they thought they knew about courage, loyalty, and respect. The hub flourished. The dragon flew freely, its fire lighting the night sky as a beacon. Merchants and travelers came from faraway worlds, eager to see it, eager to learn from it. Children played near its shadow, painting it in bright colors and telling stories of its bravery. Tom continued to work in his shop, repairing engines and crafting new machines. But now he did so with a sense of purpose that went beyond simple mechanics. He had learned that one. A person's courage could change the fate of many. That trust could tame the fiercest fire. That kindness could inspire even the most hardened hearts. And the dragon had learned that not all beings were cruel. That friendship could be stronger than chains. And that loyalty could bring honor to even the most feared creature. One night, as the hub celebrated the Festival of Stars, Tom and the dragon stood on a high platform overlooking the city. Lights sparkled across the station. Ships flew in rhythm like dancing stars, and people cheered for the dragon's courage. Tom rested his hand on its head, feeling the warmth of scales and the gentle rumble that had once been feared. "You are no longer alone," he said softly. "The galaxy sees you now. They respect you." The dragon lifted its wings and let out a final, deep roar. It was not a roar of rage, but a roar of pride, of freedom, of trust rewarded. The sound echoed across the hub and beyond. Reaching the stars themselves, the galaxy that had once despised it now celebrated it. The dragon that had been chained and feared now flew as a legend. And the human mechanic who had chosen to pet it, who had chosen trust over fear, had changed the destiny of both the beast and countless lives across the stars. They stood together, side by side, a reminder that courage, kindness, and trust could overcome hate, fear, and misunderstanding. And so, the hub glowed beneath the red star, alive with stories of bravery, and the dragon, once despised, became a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. The story spread to every system, inspiring humans and aliens alike to believe that even the fiercest beings could be tamed with care, and that one person's courage could ignite respect across the stars. Tom looked at the dragon, and the dragon looked at him. They had faced fire together. They had faced fear together. And now they would face the future together. The galaxy had learned respect, not through weapons, not through fear, but through the quiet courage of a human mechanic and the trust of a dragon. And from that day forward, whenever anyone spoke of dragons, they spoke of one dragon and one human who had changed the galaxy forever.